Lepo pozdravljeni vsi, ki ste danes na tem sklopu nove priložnosti za lokalne skupnosti. Dopoldne smo slišali veliko zanimivega in veliko uporabnega. Govorniki so nam predstavili različne poglede in tudi različne perspektive na koncept krožnega gospodarstva. Moram reči, da ko smo jih poslušali, je bilo vsem skupno to, da je krožno gospodarstvo nastalo kot odziv na čedalje večje povpraševanje gospodarstva na eni strani in povpraševanje nas potrošnikov in pa seveda tudi na omejene možnosti lokalnega okolja. Če smo bili dopoldne usmerjeni v širši okvir in širšo sliko dogajanja, pa bomo sedaj usmerjeni bolj v konkretne rešitve, ki jih uporabljamo lahko v lokalnih skupnostih in lahko prinesejo seveda velike koristi vsem, ki sodelujemo v tej verigi na nivoju lokalnih skupnosti. Naj poudarim, tako kot je do sedaj, da v linearnem gospodarstvu so odpadki predstavljali predvsem strošek in to ne majhen za lokalne skupnosti. Stroški so bili veliki. S prehodom v krožno gospodarstvo pa odpadki postajajo ne več strošek, ampak možnost za nov nadaljnji razvoj. In sicer to se pozna, kot smo že dopoldne lahko slišali, tako v številu povečanih delovnih mest, kot v novih oblikah podjetništva, predvsem pa v nižjih stroških za lokalno gospodarstvo. Lokalna skupnost je tista, ki ima seveda v svojih rokah veliko možnosti in potencial, da krožno gospodarstvo zažene, da da poudarek in tisti pomen, ki si ga krožno gospodarstvo seveda tudi zasluži. Vendar pa, bomo rekli, dopoldne smo slišali zelo velike številke, ki se jih včasih morda tudi ne znamo predstavljati. Zato pa imamo danes med nami govorce, ki nam bodo predstavili konkretne rešitve vpeljave krožnega gospodarstva na lokalnem nivoju, ki so seveda že nekako uresničeni. Rada bi predstavila današnje goste in bi seveda začela pri dami, jo vsi najbrž poznamo, to je gospa Katja Slokan, direktorica podjetja Unirek. No, zraven nje sedi gospod Marko Mattiello, ki prihaja iz Italije, je vodja mednarodnih odnosov v Contarini, povedal nam bo marsikaj zanimivega. Šarmantni gospod zraven njega je gospod Sepp Eisenriegler, mnogi med vami ga tudi poznate, kjer je tudi direktor posebne mreže, o kateri bomo danes slišali še zelo veliko. In na moji levi je gospod Moritz Bergen, ki nam bo ravno tako predstavil velike možnosti prihrankov krožnega gospodarstva na lokalnem nivoju. Predno predam besedo govorcem, bi rada povedala, kako smo si zamislili potek tega sklopa. Vsak od govorcev bo imel na voljo 10 minut za prezentacijo, vprašanja bi pa sledila po koncu vseh predstavitev. Vem, da bomo slišali marsikaj uporabnega, marsikaj, kar je bilo že preizkušenega, predvsem pa to, kar se je v resnici in v praksi že izvedlo in je seveda uporabljivo tudi v naših okoljih. Tako, da bi pa sedaj rekla, končali smo pri gospodu Morisu, sedaj bomo pa začeli s predstavitvami ravno pri njemu. In zadnji bodo prvi, a ne? Prosim, gospod Moris.
Thank you, Alenka. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So you know who I am. I just want to briefly find out who I'm talking to here. Could I ask, are there any hospitality or tourism workers, executives in the room? If you just raise your hands. Okay, good, a smattering. Public sector, government, local authorities, and then other service industries, other businesses. Okay, so a decent mix. And what I'd like you to think of while I'm talking this afternoon, I should say, is, my focus will be on hotels, because in tourism, hotels consume the most. In fact, hotels, as across the road in Bordeaux, we do nothing but consume. So our output is happiness. and rest and joy, but we consume a lot. So the resources and being efficient is very important. Thank you. Okay. Ireland is green. Slovenia is green, but we have an advantage around the world. On the 17th of March every year, we turn the world green. And it's an image that we use to attract tourists, visitors to Ireland. We get to meet the President of the United States every year. It's a unique political ability on St. Patrick's Day. So it gives us a particular edge. And again, it's that greenness that we really promote. We've even named a petrol station after Mr. Obama because his great-great-grandfather came from Moneygall in Ireland. But the real image is, and you know, these could be images actually of Slovenia. These are images of Ireland. This is why people visit Ireland. They visit us for our culture, our environment, our heritage. Hugely, it rains a lot in Ireland. We've got a lot of green, as you have here. But you got to ask this: how green are we? And how green is any tourism sector in any country in Europe? And how do we promote and protect this image? Where we came from. We are a national environmental certification program for the hospitality sector. So we cover from hotels down to tour guides, ecotourism, the whole works. We started small, local, regional. We got our Environmental Protection Agency interested in us in 2008, and they have funded our program up until this year, 2015. So we're now a national program. And we based ourselves, we are an eco-label. I mean, that we are unashamedly an eco-label. My background is as a hotel manager. I used to do all the bad things in terms of inefficient resource management. Now I'm trying to persuade and train my colleagues to do good. And we looked at the likes of the EU Flower. There is an eco-label for accommodation in Europe. You have one in Slovenia. We have none in Ireland. There are none in the UK. There are none in France. It's very much an Italian, Austrian label. It's very restrictive. It's quite costly. And in business terms, if you make it difficult for businesses, as in if you make it expensive for businesses to do good, they won't do it. They'll find all sorts of ways not to. We've the support of the sector in Ireland, very important, small country. We fought very hard to have one program in our sector because we believe in a small economy and very similar to Slovenia. If you have a multitude of labels promoting the same sector, all you do is you consume your visitors and the people who work within it. And that's the multitude of labels. We're up there with all the other 140 odd green hospitality labels around the world and still counting. We do two things. We promote good practice in terms of resources. We look at best practice, case studies, advice and guidance, and the certification. We have two separate programs. One is aimed at the built environment, predominantly hotels, and the other at ecotourism, the natural environment where we provide services. And we also try and talk to the customers and let them know there are green products and services within the sector through greentravel.ie, which is our consumer website. But I suppose a real question for us in hospitality and in Europe is 2013, TripAdvisor launched their Green Leader program. And you say, why TripAdvisor? Why not all the 140 other programs? Why haven't they had the impact TripAdvisor has? Because TripAdvisor is the largest tourism hospitality website in the world. And if a company like that identifies that their customers want to know about responsible tourism, then we, as tourism providers, need to provide it. It's a basic business principle. You give the customers what they want. So TripAdvisor are helping to push, we've allied with them in Ireland, and they're helping to push the message, the green agenda forward. How are we doing? Well, I did this in 2012. And at the time, we thought Austria, Germany, Scandinavian countries were really good, really better than us. No, they're not. We are actually at 9%. That's 9% of, that's all. That is our top in environmentally certified hotels. And that's an appalling figure in reality, which means Austria, Germany, UK, and most European countries, very, very poor. We do not engage as well as we should. And we should, because it's an economic argument. The average hotel in Ireland saves between 30,000 and 100,000 euro per annum by implementing good resource efficiency approach. They get to be compliant with legislation, and they're servicing the market demand. In 2007, at a conference like this in Ireland, I gave a challenge to the industry to save €1 billion for the next 10 years. We all know what happened in 2007, 2008, and certainly in Ireland, they didn't save €1 billion over the 10 years, nowhere near it. Some did, but most didn't. But those who did, and I suppose part of this is part of the information about being responsible is having information, is how are you performing. We talk about key performance indicators. In our sector, we talk about in energy, kilowatt hours per square metre per annum, very much the built environment. We went from 521 kilowatt hours in 2004 to 343, 34% reduction, substantial improvement. In terms of water, we started with 499 litres of water per sleeper night. That means 2 people sharing a room were using 1 tonne of water on average. Yeah, the beds couldn't take it. We're down to 301, which is, yeah, it's a hotel. There are other reasons. That's not bad, 31%. Waste, and a lot of us spoken about waste this morning. We started at 3.5 kilograms per sleeper. We're down to 0.73. And we have one hotel with 0.01 of a kilogram waste of landfill waste per sleeper, which is pretty good. What helped? Legislation helped. Waste Management Acts. We've millions of them, as we all have. They certainly helped, but also the realization, that we needed to do better. So if we look at responsible tourism, and you can replace responsible tourism with responsible business of any sector today where you're at. There are clear economic benefits to it. There are clear regulatory requirements. There is a market demand, and there are sustainability imperatives. It's a very solid business case to be made. Where we stand in Ireland right now, I was interesting in reading in one of the briefing papers that you estimate there's 149,000 tonnes of food waste going to landfill in Slovenia. In Ireland, we have 100,000 tonnes of food waste just from the catering sector alone. We're up there about 600,000 tonnes of food waste. Using the WRAP UK figures, we've estimated that we're actually throwing away €315 million worth of avoidable food waste right now, every year in Ireland. We're wasting another 40 million water and another €100 million in energy. We're just wasting it. We're giving it to other people. Thank you very much. Which is now a total of 455 million. So the challenge I gave 2 weeks ago at my conference to our members was the €5 billion challenge over the next decade, up from the 1 billion. That's €1.25 million a day. And that's the scale of the challenge. And some of those figures, we honestly actually believe we've underestimated the challenge. What happened to us? Why didn't we do as well? Well, we had the recession, and boy, did we have a recession in Ireland. But really, I suppose the most important one, the one that was very much today, was about poor leadership. If you don't have leadership, it's not going to work. If you don't have your industry leaders, your sector leaders, your government leaders working together and giving a vision to you, it's not going to work, even though there's a compelling case. We've plenty of documents and papers and challenges, and we've passed a climate action bill. But if you want to see real leadership, go and have a look at that website, which is for the food sector in Ireland. We will have the most sustainable food production sector in Europe by 2020, down to this program called Origin Green. And it's a little bit of the carrot and stick. And I'm a firm believer in a bit of stick. Often. This is our representation of our tourism sector. There isn't and this is our Department of Tourism. It's the trade organisations, the leading tourism organisations. Not a single one of them has an environmental policy. Now, that makes our job. So maybe when I say we're only at 9%, you can see why. Because if our leaders don't promote responsible tourism, it's very hard on the ground to go up. So we exist. The sector must provide leadership, and you got to find out as who's actually listening. So, what about yourselves, Slovenia? Beautiful country. I'm only here a day and a half, but I can see many similarities, and delighted and surprised. And only when I booked, and I then did my little research, Ljubljana, Green Capital of Europe 2016, and then I went in. I said, "Great, must be loads of green hotels in Ljubljana." No, actually, there's none in Ljubljana. You have 3 in Slovenia in total. 2 Green Globe, 1 EU Flower. Copenhagen, which was the Green Capital in 2014, has 100% of their hotels certified, environmentally certified, and they are getting business. They are positioned as one of the greenest conference destinations in Europe, and they get millions of euro worth of business. It's in their interest. It works. Tomorrow, for you, green certified hotel sector, sustainability and tourism. As I said last night at dinner, I'm here. Come talk to me. We can help you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Berger, for your really very interesting presentation. But now we are going to listen Mr. Zepp. Mr. Zepp, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What you can see here is our mission statement, which means it's hard to translate into English. Use your equipment longer instead of buying more frequently. Because we found out that the best you can do to the environment is making use of your products as long as possible. And this is not said by me leading a repair center. This is said also by the scientific community, which found out that if you take a look at, for instance, a washing machine, 53% of the overall environmental impact has already happened before you turn it on the first time. So there is no better argument on this. What I have decided during the night when I had to think over the 10 minutes which I have was to say something to a few of my many slides and show you the others as an appetizer for the discussion afterwards. Because I think every one of you has heard of the term planned obsolescence. I'm a specialist on this, and I've brought something with me in order to show you that it really exists. It's not a nightmare. What I have to say now, because you're interested in what can a repair and service center do to local communities, is a bit of our history. The first thing which I was not prepared to say, but which came to my mind during the discussions during lunch, is that we all also have invented in Vienna such a thing like eco-advising for private households, which is paid to a certain extent by the municipality of Vienna, and which is a win-win situation. But this is another appetizer. RUS was invented roughly 20 years ago as a reaction of the compensation of market failure. What do I mean with market failure? At those days, there were no real offerers of repair services which were really interested in repairing things. There was just the service partners of the manufacturers. And I think you also have made this experience when your washing machine breaks down. You call a special number. Then after 3 weeks, a service technician comes by and says, well, listen, this washing machine is older than 5 years. It's not worth it. And now I have to show you my bill. I get 100 euros for that. And if you buy a washing machine of our brand, you will be refunded what these 100 euros are concerned. So this is the long arm of the sales unit, and this is not a repair service. 1 year later, because of an unexpected demand, we simply had to create the so-called Repair Network Vienna, which consists of 70 repair enterprises, and they are also different. They are not the ones who say it's not worth it. They try their best to have your things repaired. And what I came across is that new things are not so easy to repair as in former days. I will tell you something about this later on. Then we created also a Austrian network and an EU network, which was very successful in lobbying the European waste legislation. Now we are fighting for resource efficiency in the so-called Eco-Design Directive. And we are also fighting for another labeling system, what eco-labeling is concerned. Because I think it's not enough to tell the consumers how little energy the washing machine or whatsoever takes when using it. It's also interesting the ecological footprint. And how much harm did the production and the distribution do to the environment? This is the more important truth, I would say. We also have done something which you call research and development. The so-called tuning of washing machines is the scientific proof for resource and energy efficiency don't necessarily have contradictory. Because if you put away your well-working washing machine in order to save electricity, this is the completely wrong way. We have also I have to remember myself and tell you, we are also a so-called accredited reuse center. So we take back old equipment, refurbish it, and sell this equipment as I like to say, second life equipment. So if you buy a washing machine in our premises, which is starting a second circle, you get it for 300, 350 euros, and you can be sure that it works properly for 10 more years. If you buy a washing machine, a new one, for the same price at some shops, like MediaMarkt, Saturn, whatsoever, you can be sure that it's broken after 3.5 years. And it's not worth to have it repaired by then. And this is one of the examples of planned obsolescence, which I want to come back. What we have also created, which is very important, and it's interesting for the European Union at this stage of developing a circular economy, is an Austrian standard for durability and easy to repair products. We have tested 28 washing machines in the last 8 months. It was, let's say, disappointing what the results are concerned. You can see it here. There was no sufficient service documentation delivered by the producers, especially to independent repair centers. There is no access to the software of these washing machines. New washing machines are working like cars meanwhile. So if you want to have it diagnosed, it's better to come with a laptop and the software on it, connect it to the washing machine, and then you know what has to be exchanged. But there was two experiences we had meanwhile with new Miele washing machines, for instance. We could not reset the error code. So we've done the repair on those washing machines perfectly, but the customer was not satisfied, and I can see why. Because as soon as you cannot put away this error code, the reset, then it doesn't work. So we had to call the Miele service partner in order to reset the error code. He did that with his laptop. He did that, and it worked perfectly. So it is a certain trend towards a monopolism of manufacturers what the service of their own equipment is concerned. Well, I do not have the time to talk about that in detail. One interesting information we got from the manufacturers was they have, in order to answer our question for how many years are your products technically designed, this graph, which is called Uneto VNI table. And if you look at this closely, you can see that you get 1 year well-working washing machine for 100 euros. So if you pay 500 euros for a washing machine, you can be sure that it works for 5 years, but you can also be sure that after 5 years it gets broken. And in many cases, it's not possible to make a repair service on this machine because it's not economically feasible. Well, this just is supposed to show you the interest of European institutions on our standards, because this can be the basis for a European standard. And this is something which is important because the figures are not all. You probably know that the waste stream is traditionally the fastest growing. But if you see that 1.4 million washing machines, dishwashers, fridges, freezers are bought in Austria in 1 year, then it's a figure and nobody can do something about it. But if you would take all these big household appliances and put them in line without 1 millimeter between them, you would get a line which is 840 kilometers long. That's the road distance from Vienna to Strasbourg. And if you go by car, you would ride 8.5 hours along these big household appliances sold in Austria in 1 year. But Austria is also a tiny market for the international manufacturers. If you compare these figures with Germany, you would get from Hamburg to Athens and back only big household appliances in 1 year. Of course, we have also other electrical appliances, which are about 10 million pieces in Austria. So, planned obsolescence. I just want to quote one of those. An article that doesn't wear out is a tragedy for business. Well, doesn't fit the circular economy, but this was said already in 1928. And now, 2 examples concerning planned obsolescence. You can see 2 types of washing machines here. I have to reorganize myself. Whoops. This is a shock absorber of the cheap kind. If you look at it, you really find out easily that this is broken after at least 2.5 years. I can put it to one of you and you pass them over. This is how so-called throwaway washing machines are built, because if that happens, that these shock absorbers are gone, then in this case, oh, sorry about that, I have to find the point. No, it's not this one. Here we are. So I show it by hand. You would have to replace the whole tub, including the drum and the ball bearings at the backside. And this spare part is called washing unit. And it costs more than the same washing machine where it is from. It's crazy. Nobody would have this repaired. Another example is the capacitors in appliances which are radios, videos, and whatsoever. They are broken after 2.5 to 3 years. We can exchange them against better ones, and then the flat TV, for instance, is good for the next 10 years. But this is not a matter of costs, because these capacitors are not cheaper than the better ones. So, and what here is to be seen is the consumer side. We buy products we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. This is supposed to tell you something about the status symbol of our products. What we would have to do, I do not have the time to present that now. Maybe we can talk about this a little later. Thank you very much.
Hvala gospodu Ziku Eisenbergu za tako zanimivo predstavitev. Če je njega tlačila mora, ker je moral svoje predavanje stlačiti v 10 minut, po mene tlačila mora, sedaj, ko sem se seznanila s pojmom vgrajene zastarelosti. Tako da me je začelo kar malo skrbeti. Ampak vseeno mislim, da bomo še v nadaljevanju slišali kaj zanimivega. Sedaj pa bo nadaljeval gospod Mateo. Prosim, kar vaša predstavitev.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Usually, an Italian in 10 minutes is able just to tell their name, so I try to make a miracle. I'm working for Contarina. Contarina is a waste management company located in the Veneto region, in the province of Treviso, so we are quite close. We serve 50 municipalities for more than 500,000 inhabitants. We work in different areas, historical centers, outlying area, urban centers, and remote areas as well. Well, this is extremely important to achieve the results I'm gonna show you soon, is that, you know that Italians are very strong on fighting on each other. And keeping 50 mayors all together and share the objectives of the company is not easy at all. Therefore, of course, the results are necessary. The target to be hit is necessary, but the stakeholder involvement it is absolutely necessary in order to proceed all together, even if with different political ideas, but on the same path. In our territory, I would say luckily, we don't have incinerators, and in 2001, the province of Treviso has chosen to close all the landfills. Therefore, we had to think about what to do with all our waste. Before going deeper on how the system works, I like to underline that being eco-innovative does not mean only investing on technologies that mean lorries or plants. Because those are investments that are, let's say, a short, medium-term investment. After 4 or 5 years, there are new technologies, the plants need to be updated, you need to change lorries. Of course, we have lorries and plants. But what we really trust is that the best investment is a long-term investment. And the long-term investment is on the citizen, on the young generation, and on the adults. Therefore, we keep constantly involved all our citizens on what we do. Keep them involved means social medias, means we call it Eco journal that we send twice per year together with the bill to all the citizens. The calendar with the collection days. Of course, school education. We did last year more than 2,000 training sessions to all the schools from 6 to 18 years old in order to teach the kids how to behave, the correct behave, that then, of course, they bring all the information to their parents and to the families. And what is interesting is these open days we do. We open our plants. In September, it was a beautiful sunny Saturday afternoon in September. There were more than 1,500 families that came to smell the garbage in our plants. Why? Because when we ask to the citizens to do efforts, the citizens need to see why we are asking an effort. What are the results of their efforts? All these actions create individual awareness. Being proactive with the citizens, with the community, means a different approach. It's not anymore the old style company, business to business or business to consumer. This is a human to human approach, because we constantly show our face. We constantly reply to the question, to doubts that the citizen has and need answers. Therefore, being an innovative company and we are public means being always on the territory. And when we ask the responsibility to the citizens to achieve the results that I'm going to show you, means that we give a responsibility to the citizen that is responsible pay less compared to the one that is not. And the system is based on curbside collection, door-to-door collection. It's a flexible system. If you live in the city, we give you small bins. If you have a garden, you can keep larger bins on your house. We give you the big one. The city of Treviso, that is the last city that joined Contarina. How much time do we have? 4 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna then ask me about Treviso when I finish. So, the pay-as-you-throw fee, 60% is based on a fixed fee, based on the number of household members. 40% is based on the number of residual waste removals. You have a minus 30% discount if you do home composting, and you pay €1.5 per year if you have the garden bin, the green bin. This is the average of Contarina for the household fee. That means the average is 3 person per family. That means less than €60 per person. Of course, you have to compare to the cost of life in Italy. In Slovenia will be different. But what is interesting is that the average in Italy is €245 per year. We spoke about this morning. The problem is, of course, the non-recyclable waste. So we need to work together with the producers in order to make 100% recyclable products. Our organic and green waste that, again, is collected separately, the result is a very high quality biocompost. And these are the results. 85.2% of recycling rate compared to 42.3% the national average in Italy, and the 63 for the Veneto region. Residual and bulky waste per person per year, less than 55 kilograms. In Italy, we are at 281. Again, on Treviso, switching from the traditional collection, waste collection with the big bins to the door-to-door, to our system, give us the chance to hire 26 unemployed. So And I'm talking only about waste collection. I'm not talking about all the other green jobs we are creating with recycling and so on. This means, and keeping the management cost the same, because the quality of the products we collect is better. That means that if there is any mayor here, for a city of 500,000 inhabitants, you're going to create 175 new jobs, and for 1 million inhabitants, 350. These are the results of Treviso from 2013, 52.2 to 85.5. The last one is that we sign, together with the 50 mayors, they sign a commitment to reach what we consider zero waste, that is 96.7% by 2022, and decrease the residual waste from 55 to 10 kilograms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mattiello. Your results are really very impressive, but we will ask you something about Treviso later. Sedaj pa bo seveda prakso predstavila tudi naša gospa Katja, tako da bomo imeli tudi primer iz naše države. Tako da, gospa Katja, prosim.
Tako, hvala lepa. Dajmo priložnost še odpadni embalaži, morda na zadnje, pa vendar v Sloveniji, no, lahko rečem, da sem res počaščena, da sem danes tu povabljena, da predstavim en primer dobre prakse, ne samo v tujini, deluje tudi pri nas. Seveda smo nekaj pokopirali, tople vode nismo odkrivali, ampak bistveno je, kar smo danes tudi že slišali, brez povezovanja, partnerstva ne gre, enostavno ne gre. Danes mi boste zagotovo verjeli, da tesno sodelovanje in povezovanje, res partnerstvo za razvoj je ključno za uspeh majhnih, pa seveda kasneje tudi velikih dobrih primerov. Na začetku je gospod vprašal, kdo je iz hotelske branže. A bom jaz vprašala, če je kdo že kupil kdaj kakšno plastenko, pa roke gor. Morda pa da, ne? Hvala. Danes imam tu plastenko iz projekta Plastenka za plastenko, polna je vode, v originalu nosi sok znanega slovenskega proizvajalca. Za vodo pa sem se odločila, ker pač pijem vodo iz pipe. Plastenko pa včasih tudi potrebujem, ker ne znam preprečiti odpadkov do te mere, da bi vodo nosila v torbici s seboj. Torej, vzorčni primer Plastenka za plastenko, takole. Morda za tiste, ki ne poznate družb za ravnanje z embalažo, kdo smo. Unirek kot specializirana družba se ukvarja s prevzemom embalaže oziroma prenosom obveznosti. Torej gre za storitveno podjetje, ki prevzema obveznosti od gospodarstva. V sistem je vključeno preko 800 podjetij, torej gospodarstva, ki daje na trg embalirane izdelke. Izdelke, kot je na primer plastenka oziroma sok v plastenki. Vključene so tudi podjetja, ustanove, storitvena podjetja, zdravstvene ustanove, kot sem rekla, javne ustanove, pa tudi drobna obrt, torej resnično širok spekter podjetij, ki povzročajo odpadno embalažo, jo dajo na trg ali pa na koncu povzročajo resnično odpadno embalažo. Sledimo sloganu učinkovita formula recikliranja. Zdaj lahko rečem, da Unirek ima recikliranje dejansko v svojem poslanstvu. Doseči moramo okoljske cilje recikliranja odpadne embalaže, glede na količine dane na trg v Sloveniji, in recikliranje oziroma snovna predelava je seveda naše vodilo, krožno gospodarstvo pa njena nadgradnja. Zakaj? Danes smo že slišali, reciklaža je tisti en majhen delček 5% v celotni dodani vrednosti. Torej zavedamo se, lahko rečem, da res živimo, dihamo idejo krožnega gospodarstva. Danes vam predstavljam primer Plastenka za plastenko, pa vendar želim bolj predati idejo, ideologijo, prepričanje, lahko včasih me imenujejo celo idealizem, vizionarsko, kakorkoli, prepričanje, da se da. Nekaj majhnega z združenimi močmi seveda prenesti v prakso. Nenehno vlagamo v projekte krožnega gospodarstva, predstavljenemu kasneje se je pridružil ravno kar pilotni projekt še za neko drugo vrsto, ki ga bom potem kasneje tudi predstavila. Kako mi razumemo zapiranje snovnih tokov? Poimenovali smo jih odprti in zaprti snovni krogi. Pa krogi, vedno pravim, pokažemo krog. Krožno gospodarstvo, da, predelamo lahko pravzaprav vso embalažo, seveda recikliramo pa resnično dosledno ločeno embalažo. Besedo ali pa termin dosledno smo začeli sistematično predstavljati, uvajati v komunikaciji z uporabniki, tako v gospodarstvu kot tudi v gospodinjstvih. Lahko rečem, da v Sloveniji že pridno ločujemo. Ja, tudi nekatere statistike temu pritrjujejo. Kvaliteta, kakovost ločevanja, resnično dosledno ločevanje pa je naslednji korak, ki se mu moramo resnično posvetiti. Med embalažo namreč najdemo velike količine snovi, ki tja ne sodijo, primesi, nečistoč, bioloških odpadkov, še popolnoma novih zapakiranih izdelkov, torej marsičesa, kar tja ne spada. Pri krožnem gospodarstvu seveda upoštevamo življenjski cikel posameznega izdelka, njihovih sestavnih materialov, opredelimo seveda, kolikšen delež posameznega materiala lahko uporabimo. Ne maram besede downcycling, ker beseda down nekako ni glih ravno spodbudna. Pa vendar pri zapiranju krogov seveda poznamo različne pristope oziroma uporabo recikliranih surovin. Pri primeru plastenka za plastenko smo odpadne slovenske plastenke vdelali skozi reciklirano surovino v novo plastenko. Iz izdelka odpadek, odpadna surovina radi rečemo, kasneje reciklirana surovina in leta v nov izdelek. Govorimo o redizajniranju izdelkov, pa vendar je mnogo ceneje pravilno dizajniranje oziroma snovanje izdelka še preden ga sploh prodamo, prvič damo na trg. Ker spreminjati, kot smo tudi danes v mislim, da enih prvih ali drugi prezentaciji slišali, zamenjati popolnoma surovino pomeni mnogo večjo investicijo kot sam prvi pogled, celosten pogled na nek nov izdelek. V našem primeru smo s partnerji pogledali obstoječi izdelek. Seveda skozi nekaj faz testiranja potem našli najboljšo učinkovito formulo recikliranja. Izdelamo skozi krožno gospodarstvo lahko nov izdelek na dva načina. Prvi, da je iz odpadnih materialov nastanejo nove surovine, ki pa jih seveda kasneje uporabimo za izdelek za drug namen. Primer plastenko pa je, da smo odpadno surovino uporabili pri izdelavi nove plastenke, torej izdelka za enak namen, kot je bil prvotni. Zavedati se moramo, da tega ne zmoremo narediti iz vsakega odpadnega materiala za vsak izdelek. Pri nekaterih pa se seveda lahko trudimo. Krogotok zapiranja snovnih tokov, torej odpadnih slovenskih plastenk, je prvi v Sloveniji, kljub temu, da so tako imenovan regranulat uporabljali tudi že drugi proizvajalci, polnilci pijač v Sloveniji, pa vendar ta regranulat ni prihajal iz slovenskih odpadnih plastenk. Torej prvič, zdaj po prvem testnem letu, letos uporabljamo samo slovenski granulat oziroma izdelujemo slovenske plastenke, ki so prodane na slovenskem trgu s pomočjo odpadnih recikliranih plastenk iz Slovenije. Bi se morda kdo opogumil, kako en tako enostaven krog deluje. Veste, najbolj enostavne stvari v naravi so krožne, potekajo ena lepo za drugo, nobenih komplikacij. Tudi tu si lepo sledijo. Prvič kupite plastenko. Kaj naredite z njo? Popijete jo, ja, upam, da je ne zlijete stran, ampak jo popijete do konca, izpraznite do konca, na to. Tole se je zelo lepo slišalo, dosledno izpraznimo, stisnemo, po možnosti zapremo. Zakaj? Da se ne razpre. Vemo, da se pokrovčki zbirajo tudi v druge namene, pa vendar lahko spodbujamo, naj se zatisne, da s tem prihranimo pri volumnu pri transportu. Kasneje, upam, da jo vsi odložite v ustrezen zabojnik za ločeno zbiranje plastične in kovinske embalaže. to komunalno podjetje odpelje, kjer prevzamemo družbe za embalažo, mešano embalažo, jo usmerimo v sortirnice in razdelimo embalažo in plastenke po barvi, le te na to usmerimo v ustrezno predelavo. Ta obrat mora imeti poseben certifikat za predelavo embalaže za namene živil, torej ne gre za enostavno predelavo 5 plastenk, ki potem iz njih nastane granulat za uporabo v naprimer tekstilni industriji ali pa za izdelovanje nakupovalnih vrečk. Torej za posebno predelavo, kjer nastane regranulat, le tega pa pri partnerskem podjetju Gastropet vdelajo v predformo, torej take provete, ki so izdelane iz 50% regranulata iz slovenskih odpadnih plastenk. Le te na to dostavijo v Fruktal, kjer jih napihnejo in znova napolnijo s pijačo, ki jo prodajo na slovenskem trgu. Enostaven krog, sklenjen, deluje. Pozitivnih učinkov seveda ni malo. Pri izdelavi iz 50% reciklata se je ogljični odtis znižal za 60%. Seveda smo s tem pripomogli k ohranjanju naravnih virov, saj smo nadomestili primarni vir za izdelavo predforme oziroma plastenke, pri sami izdelavi ohranili oziroma porabili manj energije, pa ravno tako transportne poti so se skrajšale, kljub temu, da v predelavo je potrebno plastenke še vedno odpeljati. Kot sem že na začetku omenila, pa seveda projekta brez korektnega partnerstva za razvoj ne bi bilo. Tu je velja prepričanje, da seveda se, oziroma dostikrat sem slišala, koliko pa je tu ekonomskega učinka, po domače dobička. Naj vas razočaram, da v tem primeru gre za trajnostni projekt za daljše obdobje, ki je na začetku investicijski projekt in terja od vseh udeleženih partnerjev ogromno časa, znanja, pa tudi investicije. Torej v tem moram reči, da zaenkrat visokih dobičkov ni bilo niti načrtovanih, niti realiziranih. Seveda UNIREK kot povezovalni člen deluje v krogih vedno stimulativno, kar pomeni, da se smatramo kot nekega pobudnika pri ustvarjanju teh krogov, ampak veste, rečem gliha v kap štriha. Prepričati je dosti lažje kot prenesti to ideologijo oziroma razmišljanje potem na tiste slehernike, ki jim pa to še ni domače. Seveda pomemben je stalen nadzor in pa koordinacija pri projektu, da se ustrezne količine usmerijo v predelavo. Preko 400 ton novo izdelanih plastenk napolnjenih s pijačo proda polnilec Fruktal na slovenskem trgu. Ni bilo vse tako enostavno in rožnato, tudi naleteli smo na nekatere ovire, pa vendarle lahko rečem, smo predstavili že v testni fazi ta projekt na ministrstvu, kjer so ga sprejeli z odobravanjem, ga pozdravili. Marsikatere nedorečenosti v sistemu smo predstavili. Najhuje je, da bi krog lahko mnogo bolj optimalno deloval z večjimi količinami odpadne embalaže, ki pa ravno pri plastenkah nažalost zginjajo mimo sistema. Nekatere so tudi onesnažene, pa vendar rešitve za te težave že poznamo in nadejamo se, da jih bodo v prihodnje tudi upoštevali. Kot pa sem rekla, ne spimo na lovorikah, imamo tudi nov razvojni projekt, pilotni projekt, v Novem mestu, kjer odpadno embalažo mleka, sokov in pa drugih pijač, tako imenovano tetrapak embalažo, usmerjamo iz lokalne skupnosti v predelavo, kjer se izdela posebna surovina v Italiji, iz katere nastaja na to higienski papir. Tu v tem primeru je dejansko lokalna skupnost vir surovine za nov izdelek. Pridružila se je komunala Novo mesto kot partner, pa seveda Eko-iniciativa, Lukart kot proizvajalec higienskih, eden večjih proizvajalcev higienskih pripomočkov oziroma proizvodov za proizvodnjo teh robčkov oziroma higienskega papirja. Kems dosledno za naš higienski papir pa je slogan seveda, kjer želimo vsakogar spodbuditi, da dosledno ločuje doma in povsod v šoli, v službi, pravim, na vsakem koraku. Našo učinkovito formulo recikliranja komuniciramo na večjih nivojih. Tako želimo ljudi spodbuditi, da dejansko začnejo razmišljati o doslednem ločevanju in povezovanju v krožno gospodarstvo. Tetra Pak povezujemo embalažo z morebitno novo uporabo. Da spodbujamo pozitivno gospodarstvo, pozitivne učinke krožnega gospodarstva, sem že omenila. Želim pa samo toliko reči na koncu apel prav vsem, da naj razmislimo sami, kaj dejansko potrebujemo, koliko potrebujemo, če le nastane, kaj lahko z svojimi odpadki storimo, kako pripomoremo z samimi idejami, ker se pravim, večino stvari je že pri nas doma, le premik v glavah potrebujemo. Na koncu pa še morda samo še priložnost za dobrodelnost. Jaz ti mi za Slovenijo, katerega partnerja. Gospa, zgolj še zadnji slajd. Kjer sodelujemo pri vseslovenskem humanitarno-ozaveščevalnem projektu skupaj s partnerji, v tem primeru Ekošole, Bogatstva zdravja, osveščamo mlade, najmlajše o pomenu uvajanja krožnega gospodarstva, torej dejansko o ohranjanju naravnih virov, kot vemo, jih Evropi primanjkuje, in to predstaviti skozi ozaveščevalni pa tudi humanitarni projekt, kjer zbiramo odpadne plastenke in njihov izkupiček na to namenimo za nakup inkubatorja v kranjski porodnišnici. Seveda se vam zahvaljujem za pozornost in vas lepo pozdravljam.
Najlepša hvala gospej Katji za predstavitev. No, in izkazalo se je, da ženske res rade govorimo. Ampak slišali smo pa seveda veliko dobrih in uporabnih stvari. Zahvaljujem se vsem našim 4 govorcem, ki so nam seveda dali marsikaj v razmislek, dali nove ideje, pa tudi stvari za razmišljati. Iz predstavljenih primerov je seveda razvidno, da razmišljanje v smislu krožnega gospodarstva prinaša velike koristi. Zdaj imamo na voljo še 1 uro, ki jo bomo namenili postavljanju vprašanj, vendar pa bi, seveda, ker sem tudi jaz ženska, rada tudi malo govorila in bom na začetku morda kar sama postavila vsakemu od govorcev po 1 vprašanje in bi začela kar pri mojem sosedu, gospodu Bergnu. Gospod Bergin, turizem v Sloveniji je zelo pomembna panoga in sicer prinaša 13% domačega bruto proizvoda in zagotavlja 12% zaposlenih ljudi. Z 40% izvozom storitev je pa naš največji izvoznik. Odgovoren turizem dejansko pomembno vpliva na gospodarstvo, predvsem na lokalno samooskrbo. Iz vaše predstavitve bi rada izvedela, oziroma če mi lahko pojasnite, kaj je bil tisti osnovni motiv, da so se hoteli odločili sodelovati v vašem projektu. In pa predstavili ste nam številke, ki so sicer bile globalne, pa bi morda vseeno bilo bolj plastično, če nam za primer nekega povprečnega hotela predstavite vrednostno ali pa količinske prihranke na letni ravni. To bi bilo vse.
I will. A typical 100-bedroom hotel has the potential to save about €250,000 per annum by being more energy, water and waste efficient. Half of those we term no and low cost. No cost quite literally doesn't cost you a penny, and waste falls into that, separation and avoidance of waste. The other half will be a medium to large investment, but the philosophy behind good resource efficiency is you do the small things, the cheap things first, you use the savings to pay for the larger cost items. So, you have a perfect circular economy going in your own operation there. Does that answer that question? Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, the big one for us really has been in the last 2 years the growth in food waste. We've done good work on energy. We've done good work on water. The food waste is phenomenal. We throw away we throw away commercially 30% of the food we buy. Same as every residential premise. We need to stop doing that. Be a lot smarter.
Hvala, no to je bilo prvo začetno vprašanje, bi pa postavila potem kar vprašanje naprej gospodu Eisenriglerju. Vemo, da odpadna električna in elektronska oprema je eden najhitrejših rastočih odpadnih tokov v Evropi. Nekje se predvideva, da bi bilo te opreme že do leta 2020 okrog 12 milijonov. Zdaj, mreže neodvisnih servisov predstavljajo oziroma postajajo pomemben prispevek k krožnemu gospodarstvu. In to v dveh smerih. Po eni strani zaradi ponovne uporabe in podaljševanja življenjske dobe, po drugi strani nas pa tudi opozarjajo na ta strašljiv pojem vgrajene zastarelosti. Po drugi strani pa takšne servisne mreže predstavljajo tudi možnost za zaposlovanje mogoče dolgotrajno brezposelnih. Vem, da ste to naredili pri vas na Dunaju oziroma v Avstriji, mogoče bi tudi kaj okrog tega povedali, vendar pa je moje osnovno vprašanje naslednje. Zanima me, ali obstajajo kakšni standardi, garancija ali kaj podobnega za aparate, ki jih servisirate in jih ponovno uporabite. Kako ste to uredili, na kakšen način, ali ste imeli pri tem kakšne težave pri uvajanju tega v Avstriji? Hvala.
Thank you that you have mentioned things which I would like to have said in my presentation already. So I think it's worth to be replicated. We started off in 1998 being a so-called WISE, which is not witty, but the abbreviation of Work Integration Social Enterprise. So our first purpose of our enterprise was to bring older, long-term unemployed back into jobs again. We had a great performance. Actually, we should have landed in the Book of Records because within the first 10 years, we have placed 71% of all those long-term unemployed, which were with us for 1 year at the most, back into regular jobs. Now, then the Labour Authority changed its strategy. Well, I do not say anything about this. And we were sort of forced to get privatized, which was an interesting experience because we have, it's not easy to cover all our costs because new equipment, as bad as it is, does not speak the environmental and social truth. So this is an unfair competition. If you buy a new washing machine, it is the result of a double exploitation. First, the exploitation of mineral resources in the south, and then the exploitation of workers in the east, in the Far East. And this is the reason why prices of this whatsoever electrical and electronic equipment is far too cheap. And we have to change this. It was already said in the morning. I'm working on this for 40 years, and maybe I will still be alive when it has been implemented. We have to shift the taxation from manpower to resources. Without that, there is no real truth in competing as a repair provider with new products. So this for the beginning. The second thing was What do we provide the customers with for being sure that he can buy good equipment? What I always say, it's not a second-hand equipment, but a second life product, which he or she buys with us. Of course, we have to fulfill the legislation concerning warranty. So if you buy something new, you have a warranty of 2 years. If you buy a second life product, you have a warranty of 1 year. But this is not really the problem because we have a guarantee of a half a year anyhow. Because customers are in a bad position after 6 months if they want to have their problems solved by the retailers, because then they have to prove that something is wrong, which is not easy. So it doesn't make any difference, and we are very nice to our customers if one comes 1.5 years later and says, well, I've never taken the wool program of this washing machine, and now I found out that it doesn't work. Well, we don't believe them all, but we help them. So was this an answer to your questions, or did I leave out anything? It's quite good. Okay.
Hvala gospodu za odgovor, čeprav ga bomo kasneje morda še povprašali o številu zaposlitev, ki so jih omogočile te servisne mreže v Avstriji. No, sedaj pa prehajamo na gospoda Matjela, pa ga tokrat ne bom vprašala o Trevisu, bi ga vprašala nekaj drugega. Rezultati, ki jih dosegate že v tem trenutku, po vsej verjetnosti presegajo cilje, ki jih je oziroma jih bo postavila Evropa. Rezultati, ki jih pa nameravate doseči, so pa resnično zelo, zelo impresivni. Vendar pa bi me zanimalo, kako ste te rezultate dosegli, predvsem pri sistemu zbiranja odpadkov pri večstanovanjskih stavbah in pri individualnih hišah. Vemo, da je tukaj kar veliko problemov pri ločevanju oziroma zbiranju, in zato me zanima, kakšna je razlika v učinkovitosti zbiranja pri teh dveh področjih. Hvala.
Well, I like to take, before answering, but it's also part of the answer. The results we obtain are made by humans. Okay. So I'm not a robot, as you can see. And also, the 500,000 inhabitants are inhabitants, so are also humans. And the IQ, the intelligent quotient of the population of Treviso, it's absolutely in the average of Italy. That means the result obtained are not made by robots or genius, but by citizens like you. 15 years ago, Treviso was, not Treviso, the entire territory was at 25%. So we didn't start from 70 or whatever. Don't come to tell, oh guys, you are in Italy, you are rich, you are in Slovenia, we are in Croatia. No, doesn't work. It's only the intention, transmitting to everyone the enthusiasm to do that. 2 examples. The first one is that there is a lot of people in the territory of Treviso that when they go on vacation in some places where the collection method is not good enough or is different, they bring their waste at home. I see it with my eyes. The second one is that the son of one of my best friends came, he knows that I work in Cotarina, and he said, Marco, but when your colleagues are coming at my school to do the training sessions. So it is really, I mean, this is people and also the kids that are growing, knowing since the beginning what they have to do. And this is extremely, extremely important. And to close this part, if you think that in your territory it's impossible to do, you're just the 99% of the people that thinks that after my presentation. But just to inform you, we receive every single week questions from other municipalities in Italy, but not only in Italy, by consortium of municipalities that are interested to replicate our model and to bring their model in their territory, because they see that it works. It's not easy. It's not easy at all, because of course, feeding an incinerator is much easier, but these are the results. Talking about the high buildings, and I come to, I'm also replying about Treviso. No, now I can speak now. I mean, I don't have the lady is gone, so.
The stage is all yours.
No. So Treviso, 80,000 inhabitants when they joined Contarina in 2013, and they have the historical center, but outside the historical center there are high-rise buildings. They said, okay guys, first in the small apartment, of course we cannot put a 120 liters bin, otherwise I have to kick out my family for your bins. We need a solution. Okay, the solution is smaller bins, of course, a 30 liters bin that you can put one on the other. Okay, that works. We need to study how to collect more often your waste, because outside of Treviso or in the country, outside of the cities, we collect the residual waste every 2 weeks. So we collect the residual waste, for example, twice per week, etc., etc. Okay, that works. But you know what? In the historical centers, the bins outside for a lot of hours, because a family goes to work and they cannot take their bins home and stays out the whole day, I don't really like it. Okay, how can we find this solution? We find a solution that we created kind of bus lines. We have 9 different, we call it EcoBus and EcoStop, made by the lorries. So these lines cross Treviso and the surrounding of the historical center. They stop for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and people can go to bring their waste to the lorry directly. And this is also a very interesting social phenomenon, because the retired people, the senior citizens that usually they are not that busy during the day, they give the appointment when the lorry comes. So they bring waste and then they start chatting and having a drink of a glass of wine. So also socially works, and it's a good solution. This, to answer your question, means that even if we are facing with different problems, we manage to solve them. Of course, again, the responsibility to the citizens, and also checking continuously if the citizens put their waste in the correct way, it is necessary. especially at the beginning when you start with this model, because we had a lot of illegal dumping in the first few months because people didn't know what to do. They were afraid to pay more. But then when they understood how the system works, now we are at 0.1 of illegal dumping in all the territory. Thank you. Hvala.
Hvala gospodu Matijeli za tako plastično predstavitev in tudi sisteme ozaveščanja oziroma nagrajevanja potrošnikov pri nas. Sedaj bi pa postavila gospe Katji vprašanje. Vprašala bi jo, kako, gospa Katja, ocenjujete obstoječe kapacitete za recikliranje odpadkov v Sloveniji in katere vrste odpadne embalaže bi lahko, glede na nastale in zbrane količine, lahko še stroškovno učinkovito reciklirali doma.
Glede kapacitet je bilo mnogo že rečeno, samih komunalnih odpadkov regijskih centrov. Poskušala se bomo osredotočiti na samo embalažo, kjer skozi sortiranje pridobimo različne vrste odpadne embalaže. Ta se nato predeluje v predelovalnicah po Sloveniji in Evropi. Evropo smatram kot skupen trg, mnogo pa jo gre tudi v predelavo, v prodajo v tretje države, Azijo, na Kitajsko. Vprašanje vaše glede možnosti predelave dodatnih razvoja oziroma postavitve novih predelovalnih kapacitet v Sloveniji vidim tudi za potrebe projekta Plastenka za plastenko. Ko smo se s partnerji pogovarjali, bi podoben obrat, kot stoji pri Dunaju, lahko postavili tudi v Sloveniji za okvirno 6000 ton odpadnih plastenk. Kar po naših podatkih o količinah plastenk prodanih na slovenskem trgu je možno doseči. Pa vendar moramo opozoriti, kar smo tudi že javno obelodanili, je, da količine zbranih plastenk sprejetih skozi sisteme družb za ravnanje z embalažo, kot je naša, ne dosegajo te skupne količine, naprimer 6000 ton. Vzroke, razloge smo iskali na večjih koncih. Nekatere so, da količine odtekajo mimo sistema, se prodajajo mimo sistema kot druge vrste odpadkov, pa vendar končajo nekje v predelavi. Torej ne gre za odlaganje nelegalna odlagališča v naravi ali karkoli, pa vendarle ne končajo v ustreznem masnem toku, ki bi ga nato lahko usmerili v nove predelovalne obrate. Nek del odteče tudi preko meje v sosednjo Hrvaško, kjer obstaja drugačen sistem zbiranja. Nek del pa nažalost kljub vsemu še ostaja na pol poln, kakorkoli umazan med ostanki po sortiranju ali pa celo med mešanimi komunalnimi odpadki. Vendar ugotavljamo, da teh količin je manj. Torej odgovor na vaše vprašanje, da, možno je v Sloveniji predelati tudi nove vrste odpadne embalaže, ki jih doslej ne predelujemo, vendar bi bil moj predlog, da razmišljamo resnično v smeri zapiranja masnih tokov, tako da ne delamo zgolj enega koraka predelave, kot smo ga naprimer pri plastenkah poznali v preteklosti, je bil zgolj obrat, ki je mlel odpadni pet, ni pa izdeloval granulata ali celo granulata take kakovosti, kot je zahtevan za izdelavo novih plastenk za živila. Torej, da pri postavljanju katerihkoli novih poslovnih modelov ali pa razmišljanju o investicijah v novih predelovalnicah resnično pogledamo celoten krog oziroma predelovanje jemljemo zgolj kot en delček proizvodnega procesa, novega modela krožnega gospodarstva, o katerem se danes pogovarjamo.
Gospa Katja, najlepša hvala za vaše razmišljanje. Sedaj bi pa jaz počasi predala besedo vam v občinstvu, tako da lahko postavite vprašanja. Kolegica vam bo prinesla tudi mikrofon. V tem času pa naj jaz sicer samo še pripomnim, da slišali smo tudi že nekaj o socialnem vidiku, ki ga morda sedaj nismo ravno zelo izpostavili, je pa ravno tako pomemben pri krožnem gospodarstvu. Vse v primeru gospoda Eisenriglerja naj povem, da je omogočil zaposlitve kar 300 dolgotrajno nezaposlenim osebam, tako da to se lahko dogaja tudi drugod in tudi ta socialni vidik je treba absolutno upoštevati. Beseda je vaša, predlagam, da se kar opogumite. Imamo že prvega govorca, lepo prosim.
Ja, dober dan in pozdrav vsem. Moje ime je Franc Pojbič. Danes smo veliko slišali o zbiranju, predelavi in ostalih segmentih, malo manj oziroma nič pa na strani pridelave odpadkov. Zato razen pri gospodu iz Irske nisem slišal, ker on je rekel, na strani pridelave skrbijo za zmanjšanje, torej konkretno so učinki tam, kjer so. Mogoče od vsakega od drugih bi rad izvedel konkretne prakse, ozaveščanje ljudi in druge prakse na strani pridelave, to pomeni končnega uporabnika in proizvajalca, ker imamo dve strani. Ker proizvajalec mora biti nečemu zavezan, oziroma uporabnik pa mora biti tudi nečemu zavezan. Tu gre skozi krog celoživljenjskega učenja. Hvala lepa. Če bi lahko vsak od njih pokomentiral na kratko.
No, morda bi potem na kratko res vsak na hitro odgovoril. Vprašanje je zanimivo, gospod Cep se je pa javil že takoj kot prvi.
Yes, I would like to answer this. Maybe I didn't tell it to you directly, but as soon as you use devices like electrical devices longer, the less have to be produced. So this is my intention, and you're perfectly right. Thank you for that question, because I think we have to come to terms with our consumption as citizens, as consumers. Not everything we have, we really need. This is what I wanted to say indirectly with my last but one chart. So it's a waste of resources to produce more and more electric devices with a shorter lifespan. That's crazy. That's simply unethical. And of course, it's unsustainable. And we have to explain that to coming generations if they will ask you someday, what have you done at those days? And I think this is the perfect timing to think about implementation of circular economy, which is actually not, I have to confess, a shift towards a decreasing resource use, but it's a decoupling of wealth and resource use, of products and resource use. So to my mind, we are on the perfect way now.
Yeah, I suppose it's the, we're sitting here looking at glass bottles, which are refillable. Many of the hotels I work with, they don't have glass bottles that have to go out to be refilled. They refill them themselves. So prevention is number one, and we often forget about prevention and avoiding waste in the first place because we have such huge volumes of actual waste. But the real question we have to ask ourselves is how do I get rid of that? How do I make sure it doesn't happen again? And I've a Radisson hotel in Dublin that saves €35,000 a year because they fill glass bottles with tap water, because of course our tap water is like yours is drinkable. And that, thank you, 35 grand. Next, it's a tough. And what's the problem? What stops us? And what stops us are vested interests. I'm a bottle manufacturer. I want to stop you making that decision, and I will do everything in my power. That's my job, because the shareholders put me there to protect my glass bottling, making, manufacturing business. So we have this terrible fight between ourselves. We want to create jobs, we want to create wealth, yet we want to stop producing some products. And that is a societal, that is our biggest societal challenge.
Yeah, of course, I totally agree with you. And just would like to add that also for us, waste prevention is absolutely the number one. In fact, also my last slide when I'm telling you that we have this goal to achieve our zero waste. So going from 55 kilograms of residual waste per inhabitant per year to 10, that is also waste prevention. It's also waste prevention when next year, the beginning of next year, we will start with a very important campaign about food waste. And also all the training session in the schools, the waste prevention is on the top. So probably our mistake, or at least my mistake, is that we don't mention that much time waste prevention, but I think that for everyone is on the top.
Ja, lahko potrdim predhodnike. Preprečevanje je zagotovo prva naloga, tako po uradni hierarhiji, kot dejansko v praksi. Torej, kot ste omenili, sta dve poti pri gospodinjstvih in pri gospodarstvu. In že ta projekt dokazuje, da dejansko polovica izdelka je iz kroga, torej ni potrebno ustvariti novih odpadkov. Smo polovico prihranili. Delujemo pa na področju gospodinjstev, se pravi posameznikov, tako da res opozarjamo, naj premislijo, koliko česa potrebujejo. Da se da ravno za vodo, kot sem omenila, napolniti plastenko večkrat. Vprašanje, če je to trajnostno za vedno, zato imamo doma vrče navadno, ali pa v kozarec, kakorkoli premisliti, na to nakupiti tisto, kar dejansko potrebujemo. Mnogo embalaže se tudi zavrže z zavrženo hrano po pretečenem roku, kakorkoli preveč nakupljeno. Torej to nenehno potrošništvo mislim, da se že približuje posameznikom doma, da ni nujno potrebno. Res najprej pametno pogledati pa na to uporabiti dokončno, če pa že odpadek nastane, ga pa dosledno ločiti, da ga lahko potem znova predelamo.
Seveda moram se oglasiti, ker ne nazadnje prihajam iz mreže centrov ponovne uporabe Reuse Network Slovenija. Marinka Vovk je moje ime. Ne nazadnje Slovenija spada že v tudi evropsko mrežo tovrstnih centrov. Leta 2012 nam je uspelo Slovenijo peljati ta korak naprej, ker vemo, da do takrat je Slovenija bila brez reuse, torej brez ponovne uporabe. Sedaj v 9 centrih omogočamo ravno to, kar je ciklično gospodarstvo pripomoglo, torej nova delovna mesta, zaposlovanje predvsem teže zaposljivim in vračanje izdelkov nazaj v uporabo. Nekakšna bolnica za odpadke bi bili, ne? Ampak hočem poudariti to, da je vendarle treba medsektorsko združiti, predvsem tukaj vidim v Sloveniji napram evropskih držav, ki so to že storile, ministrstva in denar za to najti tam, ker se zdaj nepravilno nekako spodbuja tisto, kar ni krožno. Ogromno imamo takih primerov, ker vidimo, da še vedno denar pristane tam, ker ni trajnostno. Od EPR sheme do takse, do seveda obdavčitve dela, pa seveda tudi teh izdelkov, ki še enkrat plačamo davek na njih, ki so že ponovno uporabni. Skratka, jaz vidim tle veliko priložnosti in spodbuda vsekakor taki konferenci, ki daje misliti različnim sektorjem, da iz tega kružnega potovanja ne smemo pobegniti, da zopet ne bomo preveč zaostali. Hvala.
Gospej Marinki, najlepša hvala za njeno razmišljanje. Sama se že očitno zelo dolgo časa ukvarja s tem vprašanjem in ga vpeljuje v prakso. No, ampak pri predhodnikih sem pa tudi, recimo zdaj, ko se sprašujemo in odgovarjamo na vprašanja, menim, da je tudi informiranje nas, potrošnikov, občanov, zelo pomembno in to pa je v rokah lokalne skupnosti, ki je nekje najbližje vsem nam. Kajti nobena direktiva z vrha ne bo tako uspešna, kot če to pride iz tistega lokalnega okolja oziroma iz tiste lokalne skupnosti, kjer mi živimo. Tako da morda je potrebno razmišljati tudi v večjem ozaveščanju in večji vlogi lokalnih skupnosti. No, zdaj bom pa jaz nehala govoriti in spet prosim vas, da povzamete besedo. Rok imamo, tukaj imamo gospod Lenko Puha, ne?
Lenka Puh, socialna podjetnica, vprašanje bi imela za socialnega podjetnika iz Avstrije. Če sem prav razumela, ste omenili, da ste v določenem obdobju ste se morali privatizirati. Se pravi, socialna podjetja v Avstriji so bila v bistvu v lasti države in mesta, pa nas v državi imamo samo privatna socialna podjetja, se pravi državnih in občinskih nimamo. In me pa zanima, se pravi, ta razlika med prej, ko ste bili mestno državno socialno podjetje in zdaj, ali to pomeni, da to mentorstvo za dolgotrajne brezposelne ne dobite več pokrito skupnih sredstev ali kaj drugega?
First of all, we are not state-owned. We weren't state-owned, but we were a so-called work integration social enterprise, which is a special form of getting money from the Austrian Employment Service for doing that job in order to bring people back into work. When this was phased out after 10 years, I had to make the decision either to keep on doing this job but reduce myself to our branch, which we have founded already, which is a manual dismantling center for electronic devices, or try to keep up the repair part alive and run the risk of losing everything, even my house. I did the second. Some say no risk, no fun. Actually, I would have liked to have less fun. I went through heavy times, let me put it that way. But we are a private company now. We do not get any funding. But we keep up our mission. In any case, we need additional personnel. We take them out from the long-term unemployed, or at least the unemployed. So there are not so many people we can get who are already trained as repair service technicians. So it doesn't make any difference to get somebody who comes from another job or to take somebody out from unemployment. We have to train them anyhow. And the difference now, a big difference for my employees is that they cannot stay just 1 year with us, but they have unlimited working contracts now. So if the company survives, they can stay with us until they retire. This is maybe the most important thing. And this is also the reason why I already said that we are happy to cover our costs. So it's not easy to run a private repair center.
Dober dan, Jernej Fefer z komunalnega podjetja Vrhunka. Mi smo tudi v mreži Zero Waste in se ukvarjamo z večjimi programi, ker bi tudi mi radi pokrili večino stroškov zaposlenih. Zato razmišljamo o večjih programih in eni spred programov je tudi elektronka, zato bi na gospoda iz Avstrije eno vprašanje v smeru, to je zopet vprašanje pravnega reda. Pač o garancijah ste že nekaj rekel, skrbi me pa še ena druga stvar, če recimo aparat popravim, ga dam naprej v prodajo, pa recimo se čez 3 mesece na tem aparatu naredi požar, dobim civilno tožbo, imam najbrž lahko problem, oziroma imate kakšne take izkušnje, oziroma kako se lahko zavarujete, ker nekateri aparati so najbrž stari 10 let, mogoče ne ustrezajo več tistim standardom, katere so danes, pa me zanima, kako je v Avstriji ta zadeva rešena, oziroma a so kakšni recepti, oziroma a so kakšni standardi z vaše strani, ki vas ščitijo, da ste naredili vse tisto, kar morate narediti, pa da potem v bistvu imate na sodišču mir. Hvala.
Okay. We are strictly working on a legal basis. This is the first reaction. A specific answer is that we have started with the Austrian network a so-called reuse platform, which was done by the Austrian Ministry for the Environment. And we have found out what has to be done to get the products out of the waste stream on a legal way. I can tell you this is not easy. Every single step has to be documented. It consists of at least 4 tests which we have to make. The most important is the final test, which is a security test. And there are no standards for any products older than 10 years. If we work properly and there is some problem, well, we didn't have any fire with our devices so far. And we didn't have any other problems so far, thanks God. But actually it would be a piece of the producer liability. So we do not change or intermix any different brands when we repair them. We are allowed to use used spare parts, which is another part of reuse, because it doesn't make sense to buy a new motor and do it into a 12 or 15-year-old washing machine. Then the washing machine is gone and the motor is waste, although it's well working. So we try to make use of this equipment which we get, but we cannot repair and refurbish as a whole. But we take out the spare parts in order to put them in the next generation of donated household appliances. This makes sense. If this is not all you asked, I would ask you to, yes, tell me again. Okay, fine, thank you.
Gospod Pfeffer, je bilo to, kar ste želeli slišati? Hvala lepa. Naslednje vprašanje, dajmo izkoristiti naše govorce. Vidimo, da imajo veliko znanja, veliko izkušenj in dajmo slišati, kaj je dobrega, da ne bomo delali morda kakšnih napak pri nas ali bomo pa kakšno stopnjo preskočili.
Bojan Prosenc je moje ime. Imam kar rafal vprašanj, če lahko. Ne bi rad izpadel kot nek skeptik, čeprav bom izrazil skeptične občutke. Gospodu iz Irske bi postavil vprašanje v zvezi z enim zelo znanim podjetjem, ki je iz Irske in se imenuje Ryanair. Mislim, da je vedno več turistov, ki po Evropi potujejo za vikend oziroma za par dni. To pomeni, da povzročijo ogromen izpusta za en kratek oddih in je v bilanci njihovega izleta pravzaprav so emisije, ki jih povzročijo s prenočevanjem, manjši del škode, ki jo naredijo okolju. Samo kot pripomba. Potem cenjenemu gospodu iz Avstrije. Jaz se bojim, da je problem, ki ste ga naslovili, ta prav, ampak mogoče način ni ta prav, ker s popravilom strojev ne spreminjate ekonomskega modela globalne industrije. Problem bi bilo treba verjetno nasloviti drugače, bodisi z obdavčenjem, bodisi s predpisi za minimalno življenjsko dobo ali pa z nečem, čemur jaz rečem davek na odvzeto vrednost, ker stroj, ki ga kupimo in pričakujemo, da bo imel življenjsko dobo 10 let, dejansko ima pa življenjsko dobo 3 leta ali pa 5 let, ima s tem odvzeto vrednost. In to, po mojem, bi bilo treba obdavčiti na nek način. Tako ekonomistično gledano. Potem pa še, gospe iz, se opravičujem, priimek sem pozabil. Kar se embalaže tiče, sem si zapomnil zelo en primer izpred desetletij, ne vem, če se ga bo kdo spomnil med vami. Slovenija vino je nekje v koncem 80-ih let dalo na trg Adria Cooler, ki je bil novost, to je bila ena mešanca sadnih dodatkov, vina, nekaj podobnega. V glavnem, takrat so to dali na trg v enih zelo tankih stekleničkah za enkratno uporabo in to je bila v bistvu novost na našem trgu. In ko sem se pogovarjal z enim iz podjetja, mi je razložil, da so ugotovili, da je za njih cenej, ker je embalaža cenejša, ker je steklo tanjše in prihranijo tudi pri prevozu in teh zadevah. In se sploh niso ukvarjali z vprašanjem, kaj potem s to embalažo. Šla je nekako v reciklažo, oziroma njihova računica je menda pokazala, da se jim bo splača uporabljati tanke, poceni stekleničke za enkratno uporabo. In se mi zdi, da o teh ekonomskih računicah premalo govorimo, ko govorimo o krožnem gospodarstvu, ker ko pride v igro veliko podjetje, pa veliki zneski, so kalkulacije lahko zelo neekološke. Hvala lepa.
Let me just say that Ryanair, it's an Irish-based but global company, has the lowest carbon footprint per passenger mile in the world. So if you want to fly green, fly Ryanair. Now, I caveat that with you say, how? It's because they have the most modern planes with the lowest emissions, so they just happen to be very lucky. But I'm not going to apologize for Ryanair or any other airline, because this is a challenge for tourism. We haven't spoken about climate change, and that's really what the question is. Are we in tourism willing to stop travel? Because that's what we're talking about. Or do we need to find a better way with less emissions? Nationally, no country takes responsibility for the carbon footprint of an airline. And because you can't take responsibility for everything. You take responsibility for what you can control. The people who are actually responsible for the carbon footprint on flying are the people flying. That's you and me. We decide. So it's what you do and how you respond. If you want to keep on traveling, if you want tourism to stay as 14% of GDP in Slovenia and you want it to rise to 20%, you're going to have more people flying. So grow more trees. You've got to take a bigger picture. So I can't apologise for Michael O'Leary. He pays his taxes in Ireland.
Yes, I'm answering the question. Repairing and reusing changes nothing what the production patterns are concerned. Of course they do. We have in a joint try to, well, I have to restart this sentence. It's not only the producers who are to blame, because they are also in a system which I call growth-driven. I know that from managers from different big and international companies, they are employed and have to raise the turnover by 15% within 3 years. Otherwise, they have to go. So what can they do in saturated markets like we are? There's not much more to do, either to invent products which no one needs and press it into the market, like Red Bull. I'm from Austria, I dare to say that. Or to reduce the average lifetime of products they produce in order to grow. So if we are trying to enlarge the life cycles of products, we do exactly the opposite. And as I said, I think this circular economy attempt is good for doing that, because we tried to convince the European Commission for 15 years by now in order to go into this direction, and now they are doing that. So I call this a big success, but it's not the end of the line, of course. We have to do something in order to bring that into reality. So also consumers are neither to blame nor don't have to change. So if people buy a BMW 6, you know, this monster car, I'm pretty convinced they do it because of a lack of self-confidence. And I would suggest they should pay for a few hours with a good psychoanalyst. This wouldn't use any resources and doesn't produce waste and has the same effect. So, of course, we as consumers also have to change somehow. So we do not have to buy status symbols, but only things we really need. If we want to have clean laundry, for instance, it's time to change buying washing machines into renting washing machines. And because there is no serious attempt to rent washing machines by the manufacturers, we will do that now. You don't have to possess a washing machine to get clean laundry. And in many cases, low-income households are simply not in the situation to pay 1,100 euros for a good, long-lasting washing machine. But they would save money if they would buy such a thing. They simply cannot afford it, because the alternative is to buy 7 throwaway washing machines, which is 2,100 euros in the end. So somebody has to be in the position to give them a chance who want to wash cheaply and create the possibility that they have a washing machine in their home, in their apartment, which they can use as if it would be theirs, although it's still ours. But we take care of the maintenance. We come by once a year and have a look on this washing machine. They can use it as they want, and the number of cycles after 1 year is the indicator for the amount of the rent of next year. So it will be between 10 and 30 euros per month. And this is actually not more expensive than having exchanged the throwaway washing machine every 3 years. So this is the one thing. The Austrian standard, which we developed together with our ministry and the Standards Institute, is another hint for finding out what nobody can say, not even the retailers, not even the manufacturer itself, maybe the technical designer, but how long does a washing machine last? How long can I get spare parts? This is an indicator for knowing how much money do I have to spend in order to get a durable, easy to repair washing machine. And this is something which I would have told you if I would have had the time, that is extremely interesting for the European institutions nowadays, because they are creating an European standard, and it's always easier to build on something which is already existing instead of inventing the wheel another time. The last thing which I would like to tell you is we do something about the culture of repairing. Maybe you've heard of that already, but in Germany there are, I think, 450 repair cafes by now. A repair cafe, which we have also invented 1.5 years ago, gives the possibility to consumers to learn how to repair their own things. And it's a matter of culture, because you get a certain well, what is it in English? Beziehung. A relationship, thank you. A relationship to that what we easily throw away. So if you have opened your iron, is this an English iron? Yes. Or your toaster or your mixer, blender, whatever it is called, once, and you have the success of having it repaired yourself, this is great. This is better than buying a new BMW 6. Okay.
And the car only for 4 people. It doesn't even drive 5. But has a nice packaging around it. It's designed very nice. Sorry, you were Gospod Prosenc, ste vprašal glede ekonomske računice in pa tanjšanja embalaže, pri tem, da so pravzaprav šli na enkratno embalažo oziroma embalažo za enkratno uporabo, ne pa za večkratno uporabo oziroma ponovno polnitev. Mogoče bi najprej na ekonomsko računico podala mnenje oziroma povedala, kako je bilo pri tem projektu. Izpostavila sem dostikrat, so me tudi vprašali, koliko je pa zdaj tu odzadje denarja. Ne? Pri večjih podjetjih, pa tudi pri manjših, lahko rečem, da dejansko se zavzemamo za dolgoročno računico. To pomeni, da ta projekt trenutno danes zaradi vrednosti nizke cene nafte, nizkih vrednosti tako imenovanih virgin materialov oziroma osnovnih naravnih virov celo ni pozitiven. Kar pomeni, da se podjetja zavestno odločijo, da sodelujemo pri tem podjetju, ker vemo, da na daljši rok, jutri po jutrišnjem, se bo to izplačalo. Če se že ne bo izplačalo, bo nujno in moramo biti pripravljeni, da smo že pri tem koraku, ker čez noč nekaj takega vpeljati je zagotovo najdražje. Torej podjetja, ki so trajnostno usmerjena, razmišljajo pri ekonomski računici ne samo za danes, jutri, ampak je spravljeno to 5-10 let. Res pa je, da smo pa vedno bolj soočeni tudi z ekonomskimi računicami podjetij, ki kratkoročno gledajo, danes moram preživeti. In ravno pri tanjšanju embalaže je to tudi en dokaz, da skrbijo po eni strani za okolje, saj zmanjšujejo količino porabljenega embalažnega materiala. To je tisto preprečevanje. Torej, da ne porabimo 3 kile na proizvod, ampak zgolj kilogram ali pa še celo manj. Iz tega razloga lahko rečem, da to tudi pred 10-15 leti bi lahko pozdravili. Da pa se niso ukvarjali z samo reciklažo oziroma z življenjskim ciklom embalaže, ko bo ta Adria Cooler izpit, porabljen, pa je tudi razumljivo, ker takrat strošek ravnanja z to steklenico je bil verjetno zanemarljiv ali pa ga sploh ni bilo. Pred 10 leti tako imenovanih shem družb za ravnanje z embalažo še nismo poznali v Sloveniji. Torej danes, ko se uredba spreminja, ko stroški se spreminjajo pri ravnanju z embalažo, zavezanci dejansko sprašujejo, kaj lahko naredimo, da si bomo znižali stroške. Eden od odgovorov bi bil, da se zmanjša uporaba embalaže. Drugi je seveda, da se preide na drugo vrsto embalažnega materiala, ki je lažje reciklabilen ali pa so stroški njegovega ravnanja nižji. Torej govorimo znova o ekonomski računici. Vse se začne in konča pri denarju in zagotovo to skozi prizmo dolgoročne učinkovitosti spremljajo vsa podjetja. Torej preprečevanje skozi manjšanje, zamenjavo materialov in tudi ponovno uporabo materialov. Ponovna uporaba steklenice pa je njena smotrnost odvisna od razpoložljivih kapacitet za čiščenje, za ponovno polnjenje ter seveda njihovo bližino. Torej potegniti avtomatizem, enačico, da je sigurno okoljsko bolj sprejemljivo napolniti eno steklenico, ni recept za vsako stekleničko, za vsakega polnilca v vsakem okolju. Torej gre za bolj natančne izračune in ne vem, kako bi bilo v primeru tega podjetja za Adria Cooler pred 10 leti ali pa 15. Morda sam še toliko, omenil ste komentar pri reuse centrih, da so zgolj kurativa. In v nekem delu vam dam zagotovo prav. Je en del kurative, razmišljati je treba tudi o vseh preventivnih ukrepih, ki ste jih navedel, ampak brez te kurative ne pridemo nič dlje od kupa elektronke, ki ostaja nekje pred nekim šrederjem. Torej, zato mislim, da gre z roko v roki vsi ukrepi, ki ste jih navedli, smo jih še izpostavili z namenom, da seveda res te kroge, krožno gospodarstvo in pa surovine čim večji meri zadržimo v Evropi in jih ponovno uporabimo v naši proizvodnji.
Hvala, gospa Katja, za obsežen odgovor. Ura je pa točno 2 minuti do 3, ko praviloma moramo končati to sekcijo. Gospa, ki ima zvonček, je že odšla, tako da bomo brez zvončka skončali. Jaz se zelo lepo zahvaljujem vsem našim govorcem, ki so nam dali veliko novih idej, tudi vam za vprašanja. In mislim, da bomo pri zaključkih in še potem pri okrogli mizi lahko dobili nadgradnjo iz vseh 3 sklopov, ne samo z našega. Še enkrat lepa hvala vsem za prisotnost, za vprašanja in dajmo se ravnati v takem smislu, kot smo ga danes slišali, oziroma začnimo razmišljati drugače kot do sedaj. Hvala lepa.